Let me tell you something that's going to hurt. You're thinking too small. Way too small. You're sitting there worrying about hundreds when you should be thinking in millions. You're stressing about saving $50 when billionaires are losing and making $50,000 in a single transaction without blinking. Your entire financial reality is based on thinking that's fundamentally broken. And until you fix how you think, you'll never fix how much you make. Here's what most people don't understand. Billionaires don't just have more money than you. They think differently. They operate differently. They see the world through a completely different lens. And that lens, that way of thinking, is what creates the money. Not luck, not connections, not inheritance. Thinking. You want to know the difference between someone making $50,000 a year and someone making $50 million? It's not intelligence. It's not education. It's not even work ethic. It's the size of their thinking. One person thinks in terms of, how do I save more money? The other thinks in terms of, how do I create more value? One person asks, can I afford this? The other asks, what's the return on investment? One person sees money as something scarce that must be protected. The other sees money as abundant and infinite, limited only by how much value they can create. Same world, different thinking, completely different results. The poverty of small thinking. You've been programmed for poverty, not by your parents necessarily, not by your circumstances, but by a society that teaches you to think small. To be realistic, to not get your hopes up, to play it safe, to be grateful for what you have, to not be greedy. This programming runs deep. It shows up in everything. How you price your services, how you negotiate, how you invest, how you spend your time, how you choose opportunities. All of it is infected with small thinking. Small thinking says, get a good job. Small thinking says, save 10% of your income. Small thinking says, maybe in 30 years you can retire comfortably. Small thinking says, be grateful you have a paycheck. Small thinking says, don't take risks. And small thinking creates small results. Always, without exception. Meanwhile, billionaire thinking says, create a business that generates value while you sleep. Billionaire thinking says, invest in assets that appreciate and generate cash flow. Billionaire thinking says, build wealth now, not in 30 years. Billionaire thinking says, time is more valuable than any paycheck. Billionaire thinking says, take calculated risks or stay broke. Same opportunities, same economy, same world, but completely different thinking creates completely different realities. Why this book exists. I'm not going to teach you how to buy a yacht. I'm not going to tell you what cars billionaires drive or what watches they wear. That's poor people thinking, obsessing over the symbols of wealth instead of the substance. What I'm going to teach you is how billionaires think, how they operate, how they make decisions, how they value their time, how they see opportunities, how they execute. Because once you understand how they think, you can start thinking the same way. And once you start thinking the same way, you can start getting similar results. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is not a magic formula. This is hardcore truth about how wealth is actually created. And it's going to challenge everything you think you know about money. You're going to learn why trading time for money is keeping you broke. Why your salary is a ceiling, not a floor. Why networking is for amateurs and empire building is for professionals. Why moving fast matters more than being perfect. Why most people's relationship with money guarantees they'll never have much of it. But here's the warning. This book will make you uncomfortable. It's going to attack your comfortable beliefs about money. It's going to challenge your excuses. It's going to force you to confront the fact that your financial situation is a direct result of your thinking, not your circumstances. If you want comfort, close this book. If you want validation for your current approach, this isn't it. But if you want truth, brutal, uncomfortable, game-changing truth about how to actually build wealth, keep reading. The Billionaire Lens. Imagine you're wearing glasses that show you the world in a certain way. These glasses filter reality. They highlight certain things and hide others. They make you see opportunities or threats. They shape every decision you make. Poor people wear poverty glasses. They see scarcity. They see risk everywhere. They see reasons why things won't work. They see money as something other people have. They see themselves as victims of circumstance. Billionaires wear wealth glasses. They see abundance. They see opportunity everywhere. They see solutions to problems. They see money as something they create. They see themselves as creators of circumstance. Same world, different glasses, completely different experience of reality. This book is going to hand you a new pair of glasses, billionaire glasses, and once you put them on, you can't unsee what you see. Your old thinking will stop making sense. Your old decisions will look insane. Your old financial strategies will look like self-sabotage. Are you ready for that? Are you ready to see that you've been the primary obstacle to your own wealth? That the main thing standing between you and millions is your own thinking? If yes, let's begin. Time to start living like a billionaire. Chapter 1. Time is your only real asset. You think money is your most valuable asset. It's not. You think your skills are your most valuable asset. They're not. You think your network is your most valuable asset. It's not. Your time is your only real asset. It's the only thing you have that's truly finite. It's the only thing you can't get more of. It's the only thing that, once spent, is gone forever. And yet most people treat it like it's worthless. Billionaires understand something fundamental that broke people don't. Time is the ultimate currency, not money. Money can be made and lost and made again. But time only moves in one direction. Once it's gone, it's gone. And that makes it infinitely more valuable than any amount of money. The time-money trap. Here's where most people are stuck. They trade time for money. They go to a job. They work 8 hours. They get paid. This seems normal, reasonable, necessary, but it's actually insane. When you trade time for money, you create a ceiling. There are only 24 hours in a day. Even if you work all of them, which you can't, there's a maximum amount you can possibly earn. You've capped your income the moment you agreed to trade time for dollars. Worse, you've made your most valuable asset, your time, completely dependent on someone else's willingness to pay for it. Your time only has value when someone is buying it. The moment they stop buying it, you're broke. That's not wealth. That's slavery with extra steps. Billionaires don't trade time for money. They create systems that generate money independent of their time. They build businesses. They invest in assets. They create intellectual property. They own equity. Their money makes money while they sleep, while they travel, while they do nothing, because they've broken the direct connection between their time and their income. Think about it. Jeff Bezos makes money every time someone buys something on Amazon. He's not personally shipping packages. He's not personally processing payments. He built a system that generates money without requiring his direct time. That's billionaire thinking. Warren Buffett makes money every time the companies he owns generate profit. He's not working in those companies. He's not managing them day to day. He bought assets that appreciate and generate cash flow independent of his time. That's billionaire thinking. You, on the other hand, make money only when you're actively working. The moment you stop working, the money stops. That's broke thinking, and it will keep you broke, no matter how hard you work. Valuing your time correctly. Here's an exercise billionaires do that broke people don't. They assign a specific dollar value to their time, not what they're currently being paid. what their time is actually worth if they used it correctly. Let's say you want to make $1 million a year. That's about $500 per hour if you work 2,000 hours annually. That means every hour of your time needs to generate $500 in value. Not immediately, but over time, through systems, investments, and leverage. Now look at how you're currently spending your time. Are you doing things that generate $500 of value per hour? Or are you doing things worth $50 per hour? Or $10 per hour? Or nothing? Most people spend their time on activities that generate almost no value. They spend hours on social media. They watch TV. They do busy work that doesn't move the needle. They attend pointless meetings. They do tasks that could be automated or delegated for $20. Meanwhile, they're valuing their time at zero. They're treating it like it's infinite and worthless. And then they wonder why they're broke. Billionaires are ruthless about this. If something can be done by someone who charges less per hour than their time is worth, they delegate it. Immediately. No hesitation. They don't mow their own lawns. They don't do their own taxes. They don't schedule their own meetings. Not because they're lazy. Because their time is worth more than what it costs to pay someone else to do it. If your time is worth $500 per hour, and you spend 2 hours doing something that someone could do for $50, you just lost $1,000. That's not frugal. That's financially stupid. The opportunity cost you're ignoring. Every time you choose to spend time on something, you're choosing not to spend it on something else. That's opportunity cost. And most people completely ignore it. You spend an hour watching Netflix. That hour could have been spent building a business, or learning a high-value skill, or making a connection that could change your life, or creating content that generates passive income. The cost of that hour of Netflix isn't zero. It's everything you could have created instead. You spend 2 hours commuting to a job. That's 10 hours a week, 40 hours a month, 480 hours a year. That's almost 2 full months of your life, sitting in traffic or on a train. What could you have built with 2 months? What income streams could you have created? What skills could you have learned? You spend 3 hours scrolling social media. That's 21 hours a week, 90 hours a month, over 1,000 hours a year. That's more than 6 full months of productive time. Imagine what you could accomplish with 6 months of focused effort. But instead, you're watching other people live their lives while yours passes by. Billionaires are hyper-aware of opportunity cost. They don't just ask, what will this cost me? They ask, what else could I do with this time that would generate more value? And they choose accordingly. Every single time. Time leveraging. Here's the game changer. Leverage. The difference between broke and rich is leverage. The difference between making thousands and making millions is leverage. And the most important form of leverage is time leverage. Time leverage means, how do you get more output from the same input of time? How do you make 1 hour of your effort generate 10 hours of results? Or 100 hours? Or results that compound for years? There are several forms of time leverage. People leverage. You hire people. They work on things that generate value. You own the business and the systems. 1 hour of your time managing them generates 10 hours of productive work. That's 10x leverage. Technology leverage. You build software, or create content, or develop systems that operate automatically. You spend time creating them once. They generate value repeatedly without requiring more of your time. That's infinite leverage. Capital leverage. You invest money that generates returns. The money works for you. You're not trading time for the returns. Your capital is. That's passive income. That's time leverage. Knowledge leverage. You learn something valuable. You teach it. Thousands of people pay for it. You spend time learning once. It generates income repeatedly. That's leverage. Broke people have no leverage. They trade 1 hour of time for 1 hour of pay. 1-to-1 ratio. No matter how hard they work, they can't escape that ratio. They're stuck. Billionaires have massive leverage. They trade 1 hour of time for results that continue generating value long after that hour is over. They're not working harder. They're working with leverage. The time freedom paradox. Here's something counterintuitive. The less time you spend working, the more valuable your work becomes. This seems backwards, but it's true. When you're always available, always working, always trading hours for dollars, your time becomes a commodity. It's cheap because there's a lot of it available. You're selling yourself in bulk at discount prices. But when you limit your time, when you are selective about what you work on, when you block off time that's unavailable at any price, when you create scarcity around your availability, your time becomes premium. Limited supply, consistent demand, higher prices. Billionaires understand this. They don't work more hours than you. They often work less. But the hours they do work are on high leverage activities that generate exponentially more value. They're not more productive because they work harder. They're more productive because they work on better things. Most people try to make more money by working more hours. This is addition. Billionaires make more money by working on higher value activities in fewer hours. This is multiplication. One approach has a ceiling. The other is limitless. Buying back your time. Here's the shift. Instead of trying to make more money, try to buy back more time. This sounds backwards, but it's the secret. Most people think, I'll make more money, then I'll have more freedom. But they never get there. Because to make more money, they work more hours, which means less time, which means less freedom. They're on a hamster wheel. Billionaires think, I'll buy back my time first. Once I have time freedom, I can build wealth. Because time is the leverage I need to create systems that generate money independent of my hours. So they spend money to buy back time. They hire people. They automate. They outsource. They pay for convenience. Not to be lazy, but because every hour they buy back is an hour they can invest in higher leverage activities. If you make $50 per hour at your job, and you spend 5 hours per week doing tasks someone could do for $20 per hour, you're losing $150 per week. That's $7,800 per year. You're literally paying to be broke. Pay the $20 per hour. Use that 5 hours to build something that could generate $500 per hour. That's the move. That's how you break out. But most people won't do this because they think spending $20 is expensive. Meanwhile, they're spending 5 hours, worth potentially thousands in future value, doing low-value tasks. That's poverty thinking. The compound effect of time decisions. Every time decision you make compounds. Choose to spend an hour on low-value activity today, and you lose that hour forever. But you also lose the compounding value that hour could have generated. Imagine you spend 1 hour today learning a skill that increases your earning potential by 10%. That hour doesn't just generate value today. It generates value every day for the rest of your career. That's compounding time investment. Or imagine you spend 1 hour today building a system that saves you 30 minutes every day. That hour of investment generates 180 hours of return per year. Forever. That's compounding time leverage. Billionaires think about time in terms of compounding. They ask, what can I do once that will generate returns repeatedly? What can I learn once that I'll benefit from forever? What system can I build once that will operate indefinitely? Most people think about time linearly. What do I need to do today? What's on my schedule? What tasks am I responsible for? They never escape the linear time trap because they never invest time in things that compound. Your time audit. Right now, before you continue reading, do this. Track how you spend your time for 1 week. every hour. Write it down. Be honest. Then categorize each hour. Asterisk high value time. Activities that directly generate income or build assets. Asterisk medium value time. Activities that support high value time, learning, networking, planning. Asterisk low value time. Necessary but low leverage activities, administrative tasks, maintenance. Asterisk zero value time. Activities that generate no value, entertainment, scrolling, busy work. Add it up. How many hours are high value? How many are zero value? Most people will find that less than 20% of their time is actually high value. The other 80% is either low value or zero value. They're wasting 4 out of every 5 hours of their life. Now here's the brutal question. If you value your time at what you want to make, save $500 per hour, how much money did you waste last week by spending time on low value and zero value activities? Do the math. It's probably tens of thousands of dollars in wasted potential per week. That's millions per year. This is why you're not a billionaire. Not because you don't have opportunities. Because you're wasting your most valuable asset on activities that generate zero return. The 80-20 principle of time. Here's a rule that will change everything. 80% of your results come from 20% of your activities. This is the Pareto principle, and it applies brutally to time. Look at your current income. 80% of it probably comes from 20% of what you do. Identify that 20%. Those are your high leverage activities. Now look at how much time you actually spend on them versus the other 80% of activities that generate minimal returns. Most people spend 80% of their time on activities that generate 20% of results, and only 20% of their time on activities that generate 80% of results. This is backwards. This is why they're broke. Billionaires flip this. They spend 80% of their time on the 20% of activities that generate 80% of results. They ruthlessly eliminate or delegate everything else. They're not busier than you. They're more focused than you. Identify your 20%. The activities that actually generate results. The tasks that actually move the needle. The work that actually creates value. Then restructure your entire life to maximize time spent on those activities and minimize time spent on everything else. This might mean delegating tasks you currently do. This might mean saying no to opportunities that seem good but aren't in your 20%. This might mean eliminating activities you enjoy but that don't serve your goals. This is hard, but it's necessary. The time decision. Here's your decision. You can keep treating time like it's infinite and worthless. You can keep trading hours for dollars. You can keep doing low-value activities. You can keep wasting your most finite resource on Netflix and social media and busy work. Or you can start treating time like the precious, finite, irreplaceable asset it is. You can stop trading it for money and start using it to build systems that generate money. You can ruthlessly eliminate low-value activities. You can buy back your time and invest it in high-leverage activities. One path keeps you broke forever. The other path, the billionaire path, creates wealth. Time is your only real asset. What are you going to do with it? Chapter 2. Think in millions, not thousands. Your biggest problem is not that you don't work hard enough. It's not that you lack opportunities. It's not even that you don't have enough money. Your biggest problem is that you're thinking too small. You're thinking in thousands when you should be thinking in millions. You're optimizing for pennies when you should be strategizing for fortunes. You're playing a game of incremental improvement when you should be playing a game of exponential growth. And this small thinking is killing your potential. Because the strategies that get you from $0 to $50,000 are completely different from the strategies that get you from $0 to $50 million. If you're using $1,000 strategies to chase $1 million goals, you'll fail. Guaranteed. The scale problem. Here's what most people don't understand. There's not a linear path from poor to rich. It's not like you make $50,000, then $75,000, then $100,000, then $150,000, then slowly climb to millions. That's not how it works. There's a fundamental difference between $1,000 thinking and $1 million thinking. They're not on the same continuum. They're different games with different rules, different strategies, and different mindsets. $1,000 thinking asks, how do I get a raise? How do I save more money? How do I cut expenses? How do I work more hours? These are optimization questions. You're optimizing within a broken system. $1 million thinking asks, how do I create massive value? How do I build systems that scale? How do I generate income independent of my time? How do I leverage capital and people and technology? These are transformation questions. You're building a new system. One is incremental. The other is exponential. One keeps you on the same path. The other changes the path entirely. Most people are stuck in $1,000 thinking. They're trying to save their way to wealth. They're trying to budget their way to millions. They're trying to work harder at their job to get rich. It's like trying to drive a bicycle to the moon. Wrong vehicle entirely. Why small goals create small results. You've probably heard, set realistic goals. Start small. Take baby steps. Build slowly. This is terrible advice. This is advice designed to keep you comfortable and mediocre. When you set small goals, you use small strategies. You don't need to think big. You don't need to take risks. You don't need to build systems. You just need to work a bit harder. Save a bit more. Optimize a bit better. And you'll hit your small goal. Great. Now what? You set another small goal. And another. And another. And 20 years later, you've made incremental progress toward a mediocre outcome. Congratulations. You've successfully stayed safe and broke. But when you set massive goals, goals that seem impossible, you're forced to think differently. You can't save your way to $10 million. You can't work harder at your job to make $10 million. You can't budget your way there. The old strategies don't work, so you're forced to find new strategies. You're forced to think about leverage, about scale, about systems, about creating massive value, about exponential growth. You're forced to level up your thinking. And here's the secret. The strategies that could get you to $10 million are often not that much harder than the strategies that get you to $100,000. They just require different thinking. Most people never access those strategies because they never think big enough to need them. The cognitive load of big thinking. There's a reason most people resist thinking big. It's cognitively demanding. Small thinking is comfortable because it's familiar. You know how to save money. You know how to cut expenses. You know how to work harder. These are known quantities with predictable outcomes. Big thinking requires you to operate in uncertainty. You don't know how to build a $10 million business. You don't know how to create that level of value. You don't know what systems you'd need. This uncertainty is uncomfortable. Your brain resists it. But here's what your brain doesn't tell you. The discomfort of big thinking is the signal that you're growing. When you think big, you're forcing your brain to create new neural pathways, to develop new problem-solving approaches, to imagine possibilities it couldn't see before. Billionaires are comfortable with this cognitive load. They're comfortable not knowing exactly how they'll achieve something. They're comfortable figuring it out as they go. They're comfortable with the mental strain of imagining and building something that doesn't exist yet. You need to develop this comfort. The discomfort you feel when thinking big isn't a sign you're on the wrong track. It's confirmation you are thinking big enough. If your goals don't make you uncomfortable, they're too small. The $1 million question. Stop asking, how do I make more money? That's a broke person's question. It leads to broke person answers. Work more hours, get a second job, ask for a raise, save more money. All incremental, all keeping you in the same system. Start asking, how do I create $1 million of value? That's a rich person's question. It leads to rich person answers. Build something people need. Create systems that scale. Solve expensive problems. Build assets that appreciate. Generate passive income streams. See the difference? One question assumes you trade time for money. The other assumes you create value that transcends your time. Let me give you examples. Broke thinking. I need to make an extra $500 this month. I'll work overtime. You trade more time for more money. You're still capped by hours in a day. $1 million thinking. I need to generate an extra $500 per month passively. What asset can I build or buy that generates $500 monthly? Maybe you create a digital product. Maybe you invest in dividend stocks. Maybe you rent out a room. The money comes in whether you work or not. Broke thinking. I want to make $100,000 per year. I need to find a job that pays that. You're limited by what employers will pay. You're trading time for money at a slightly higher rate. $1 million thinking. I want to generate $100,000 per year. What value can I create that people will pay $100,000 for? Maybe you build a business. Maybe you create intellectual property. Maybe you provide services that save companies more than $100,000. You're creating value, not trading time. The questions you ask determine the answers you get. Ask broke questions, get broke answers. Ask $1 million questions, get $1 million answers. The mathematics of scale. Here's something critical. At small scale, effort determines results. At large scale, systems determine results. This is why thinking big requires thinking differently. If you want to make $50,000, you can probably do it with effort. Work hard. Do good work. Put in the hours. Effort can get you there. If you want to make $500,000, effort isn't enough. You need leverage. You need to multiply your effort through systems, people, or technology. Raw effort hits a ceiling. If you want to make $5 million, systems are everything. You absolutely cannot do this with personal effort alone. You need systems that operate independent of your direct involvement. You need assets that generate value without consuming your time. Most people never make this shift. They keep trying to use effort to achieve goals that require systems. They're using addition when they need multiplication. They're using linear strategies when they need exponential ones. Understanding this math is critical. Below certain thresholds, work harder. Above those thresholds, build better systems. Knowing which game you're playing determines whether you win. Thinking in multiples, not additions. Here's how broke people think about money, additively. How do I add $100 more? How do I add $1,000 more? How do I add $10,000 more? They're thinking in terms of addition. Addition is linear. It's slow. It's limited by your inputs. If you want to double your additive income, you need to double your effort. That's exhausting. That's unsustainable. That's why most people never get rich through addition. Here's how rich people think about money. Multiplicatively. How do I multiply my money? How do I multiply my effort? How do I multiply my results? They're thinking in terms of multiplication. Multiplication is exponential. It's fast. It's leveraged. If you want to double your multiplicative income, you improve your systems by a small amount and the results compound. That's sustainable. That's scalable. That's how wealth is built. Examples of additive thinking. Asterisk work more hours to make more money. Asterisk save more money by cutting expenses. Asterisk get a second job. Asterisk ask for a raise. Examples of multiplicative thinking. Asterisk build a business that generates income without your direct time. Asterisk invest money that compounds and generates returns. Asterisk create content once that sells repeatedly. Asterisk hire people who multiply your productive capacity. Asterisk develop systems that operate without your constant involvement. One path is a straight line up. Slow, hard, limited. The other path is a curve that starts slow but becomes exponential. Fast, leveraged, unlimited. Most people choose the straight line because it feels safer. But the curve is actually safer long-term because it's not dependent on you constantly trading time. The billion-dollar businesses nobody sees. You know what most people think when they see a billionaire? They got lucky. They had connections. They inherited money. They exploited people. This is cope. This is what broke people tell themselves to avoid confronting the real difference, thinking. Billionaires see opportunities that others don't because they're looking through a different lens. They're asking different questions. They're thinking at different scales. Jeff Bezos didn't think, how do I sell more books? He thought, how do I become the everything store for the entire world? Different scale, different business. Elon Musk didn't think, how do I make a nice electric car? He thought, how do I accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy? Different scale, different business. Mark Zuckerberg didn't think, how do I make a better social network for Harvard? He thought, how do I connect every human on the planet? Different scale, different business. These people weren't smarter than everyone else. They weren't luckier. They were thinking bigger. And bigger thinking led to bigger actions, which led to bigger results. You're probably sitting on opportunities right now that could make you millions, but you can't see them because you're not thinking big enough. You're optimizing for thousands, so you see $1,000 opportunities. You're blind to the $1 million opportunities right in front of you. The infrastructure of big thinking. Thinking big isn't just about ambition. It requires infrastructure, mental infrastructure, strategic infrastructure, resource infrastructure. Mental infrastructure means you need to develop the cognitive capacity to hold big visions. Most people's brains can't sustain thinking about $1 million goals. They think about them for 5 minutes, then default back to thinking about their immediate problems. Building the mental stamina to consistently think at scale is a skill. Strategic infrastructure means you need frameworks for analyzing big opportunities. How do you evaluate a $1 million opportunity differently than the $1,000 one? What metrics matter? What risks are acceptable? What timelines are realistic? Without strategic frameworks, big thinking is just fantasy. Resource infrastructure means you need to position yourself to actually act on big opportunities. This means capital or access to capital. This means relationships with people who can help. This means skills that are valuable at scale. This means systems that can grow. Without resource infrastructure, big thinking is just dreaming. Billionaires build all 3 types of infrastructure deliberately. They train their minds to think big consistently. They develop strategic frameworks for evaluating opportunities. They build resource bases that allow them to act on opportunities. You need to build this infrastructure too. Start developing your capacity to think at scale. Start learning strategic frameworks. Start building resources that give you optionality. This is the foundation that makes big thinking actionable. Scaling your vision. Right now, whatever goal you have, I want you to 10x it. Seriously. If you want to make $100,000, change it to $1 million. If you want to build a business that makes $500,000 in revenue, change it to $5 million. Your first reaction will be, that's impossible. That's unrealistic. I don't know how to do that. Good. That's the point. You don't know how to do it with your current thinking, so you're forced to level up. When you 10x your goal, you can't use your current strategies. They won't get you there. You need new strategies. better strategies, bigger strategies. You need to think about leverage, scale, systems, automation, delegation, investment acquisition. You need to think like someone playing a bigger game. And here's what happens. Even if you don't hit the 10x goal, you'll blow past your original goal because you were using 10x strategies. Someone aiming for $1 million with $1 million strategies will lap someone aiming for $100,000 with $1,000 strategies. Every time. This is why billionaires tell you to think big. Not because big thinking guarantees big results, but because big thinking forces you to use strategies that have the potential for big results. Small thinking caps your potential before you even start. The identity shift. Here's the deeper issue. You can't think in millions until you see yourself as someone who operates at that level. If you identity as someone trying to make ends meet, you'll optimize for survival. If you identity as someone building an empire, you'll optimize for dominance. Your identity determines your strategy. Your strategy determines your results. Change your identity. Change your results. Stop thinking of yourself as an employee. Start thinking of yourself as a CEO. Even if you're currently the only employee. Stop thinking of yourself as someone who needs money. Start thinking of yourself as someone who creates value that generates money. Stop thinking of yourself as someone who hopes to be rich someday. Start thinking of yourself as someone who is building wealth right now. This isn't fake it till you make it. This is become the person who would have those results, and the results will follow. Billionaires don't act like billionaires after they make billions. They act like billionaires before they make billions. That's why they make billions. Taking action now. So here's what you're going to do. Right now. Take your current financial goal, whatever it is, and multiply it by 10. Write it down. Now ask yourself, if I absolutely had to achieve this 10x goal in the next 12 months, what would I have to do differently? Not could I. Not maybe if circumstances were perfect. But what would I have to do? You'd have to think bigger. You'd have to move faster. You'd have to take bigger risks. You'd have to build systems. You'd have to leverage people and capital and technology. You'd have to stop doing busy work and focus only on high-impact activities. You'd have to become someone different. Write down the specific actions you'd have to take. Then ask yourself, why are you doing those things right now? What's stopping you? Is it fear? Comfort? Small thinking? Be honest. The strategies that could get you to your 10x goal exist right now. They're available to you right now. You're just not using them because you've limited yourself with small thinking. Think in millions, not thousands. The size of your thinking determines the size of your results. Expand your thinking. Expand your results. Stop playing small. It's beneath you. Chapter 3. Surround yourself with winners or stay broke. You want to know one of the fastest ways to predict someone's financial future. Look at their 5 closest friends. Average their incomes. That's approximately where this person will end up. Not exactly, but close enough. This isn't motivational fluff. This is observable reality. The people you surround yourself with determine your standards, your ambitions, your beliefs about what's possible, your strategies, your opportunities, and ultimately your results. If you're surrounded by broke people with broke thinking, you'll stay broke. If you're surrounded by winners who think big and execute fast, you'll become one. It's that simple. And that brutal. The ambient environment effect. Here's how it works. Your environment programs you. The conversations you hear repeatedly become your thoughts. The behaviors you see constantly become your behaviors. The standards around you become your standards. You adapt to your environment whether you realize it or not. If everyone around you complains about money, you'll complain about money. If everyone around you makes excuses, You'll make excuses. If everyone around you thinks getting a stable job is the goal, you'll think that's the goal. If everyone around you is comfortable being mediocre, you'll be comfortable being mediocre. Your environment is constantly telling you what's normal, what's acceptable, what's achievable, what's realistic, and you absorb those messages unconsciously. They become your operating system. This is why broke people stay broke. They're surrounded by other broke people, and broke people reinforce broke thinking. They tell you to be realistic, to not take risks, to be grateful for what you have, to not get greedy, to play it safe. This isn't malice. This is their programming, and they're programming you with it. Meanwhile, rich people are surrounded by other rich people, and rich people reinforce rich thinking. They tell you to think bigger, to take calculated risks, to not settle, to go after what you want, to move fast. This is their programming, and if you're around them enough, it becomes your programming too. The neural mirroring mechanism. There's actual neuroscience behind this. Your brain has mirror neurons that fire when you observe behaviors in others. You literally neurologically simulate what you observe. This is how you learn. This is how you adapt. This is how you absorb culture. When you're around people who take action, your mirror neurons fire. You neurologically rehearse taking action. You build neural pathways for action. Action becomes familiar, comfortable, automatic. When you're around people who make excuses, your mirror neurons fire. You neurologically rehearse making excuses. You build neural pathways for excuse making. Excuses become familiar, comfortable, automatic. You are literally being neurologically programmed by the people you spend time with. Your brain is mimicking their patterns, their thought processes, their behaviors, their results. This is why spending time with winners is so powerful. You're not just learning from them consciously. You're being programmed by them unconsciously. Your brain is picking up their patterns, their decision-making processes, their risk tolerance, their ambition, their execution speed. And the reverse is true. Spending time with losers, people who complain, make excuses, think small, avoid risk, procrastinate, is programming you for failure. Your brain is picking up their patterns too, and those patterns create broke results. You can't overcome this through willpower. Your environment will always be more powerful than your willpower. If you're trying to think like a billionaire while surrounded by broke people, you'll lose. Every time. The environment wins. The comparison trap. Humans are comparative creatures. We determine our success by comparing ourselves to those around us. This is hardwired. You can't turn it off. But you can choose who you compare yourself to. If you're the richest person in your friend group, you'll feel successful. You'll feel like you've made it. You'll relax. You'll stop pushing. This is dangerous, because you're comparing yourself to people who aren't where you want to be. You're using the wrong benchmark. If you're the poorest person in your friend group, you'll feel pressure. You'll feel behind. You'll feel like you need to level up. This is good. This creates urgency. This motivates action. This forces growth. Most people choose to be the big fish in a small pond because it feels better. But feeling better doesn't make you better. It makes you comfortable. And comfort is the enemy of growth. Billionaires intentionally put themselves in rooms where they're the least successful person, where they're the poorest, where they're the least accomplished, not to feel bad about themselves, to recalibrate their standards, to raise their ambitions, to learn from people ahead of them. If you're always the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. If you're always the richest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. If you're always the most successful person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You need to be around people who make you uncomfortable with your current level. People who show you what's possible that you didn't think was possible. The tribal pressure mechanism. There's another force at work, tribal pressure. Humans evolved in tribes. We needed to fit in to survive. Being ostracized from the tribe meant death. So we developed powerful mechanisms to conform to tribal norms. These mechanisms are still active. When you start to deviate from your current tribe's norms, when you start thinking bigger, taking more risks, pursuing more ambitious goals, you feel pressure. Internal pressure from your conformity mechanisms. External pressure from people in your tribe who don't want you to change. This pressure is subtle but powerful. It shows up as guilt. Who do you think you are? You're abandoning your roots. Fear. What if you fail? What if you lose everything? Obligation. You should be satisfied with what you have. Judgment. You're being selfish. You're changing. This pressure will pull you back to the mean of your tribe. And if your tribe's mean is broke, it will pull you back to broke. You can resist this pressure for a while through willpower, but eventually, tribal pressure wins. It's too strong, too embedded. The solution isn't to resist the pressure. The solution is to change tribes. Find a new tribe with higher standards. A tribe where ambition is normal, where thinking big is expected, where taking risks is celebrated, where winning is the norm. When you change tribes, the same conformity mechanisms that pulled you toward broke will now pull you toward rich. The same tribal pressure that limited you will now elevate you. You're not fighting your psychology. You're using it. The energy vampires. Let's be direct about something uncomfortable. Some people in your life are actively preventing you from succeeding. Not intentionally, but effectively. These are the people who respond to your ambitions with skepticism, who question your goals, who remind you of your past failures, who tell you to be realistic, who make you feel guilty for wanting more, who get uncomfortable when you start changing, who try to pull you back to who you used to be. They're energy vampires. They drain your motivation. They lower your standards. They shrink your ambitions. They make you doubt yourself. And as long as they're in your life, you'll struggle to level up. Here's the hard truth. You might need to distance yourself from some people. Maybe not cut them off completely, but reduce their influence. Reduce the time you spend with them. Reduce how much their opinions affect your decisions. Create distance. This feels harsh. This feels wrong. This feels selfish. But it's not. It's self-preservation. You can't become a millionaire while surrounded by people who think ambition is greed and risk is foolish and change is scary. Their fear will infect you. Their limitations will become your limitations. You don't owe anyone access to your life if that access is preventing you from becoming who you need to become. Loyalty is important, but loyalty to your potential is more important than loyalty to people who want you to stay small. The association audit. Most people have never consciously evaluated their relationships based on impact. They have friends from childhood, from college, from old jobs. They maintain these relationships out of habit or nostalgia or obligation, not because these relationships serve their current goals. You need to audit your associations, not to be cold or calculating, but to be strategic. Your relationships are either assets or liabilities. They're either moving you forward or holding you back. There's no neutral. Do this exercise. List everyone you spend significant time with. For each person, ask, do they have what I want? Results, mindset, lifestyle, income level. Do they think bigger than me or smaller than me? After spending time with them. Do I feel energized or drained? Do they challenge me to level up or comfort me staying where I am? Do they take action or make excuses? Are they building something or just consuming? Do they operate from abundance or scarcity? Be brutally honest. This isn't about whether you like them. It's about whether they're helping or hurting your trajectory. Then categorize. Asterisk elevators, people who lift you up, who challenge you, who have higher standards. Spend more time with them. Asterisk anchors, people who hold you down, who lower your standards, who reinforce limiting beliefs. Spend less time with them. Asterisk neutral, people who neither help nor hurt. Find to keep, but don't prioritize. Your goal, maximize time with elevators, minimize time with anchors. Ruthlessly, your future depends on it. The winner's circle. So, if you need to distance yourself from some people, who should you surround yourself with instead? Winners, not in the arrogant sense, in the results sense. People who are actually doing what you want to do. People who have what you want to have. People who think how you need to think. Winners have several characteristics. They take responsibility. They don't make excuses. They don't blame circumstances. They own their results, good and bad. When you're around people who take responsibility, you start taking responsibility. This is critical. Responsibility is the foundation of all success. They think big. They don't optimize for small wins. They play bigger games with bigger potential. When you're around people who think big, your thinking expands. You start seeing opportunities you couldn't see before. They move fast. They don't analyze forever. They make decisions quickly and adjust as they go. When you're around people who move fast, your sense of urgency increases. You stop overthinking and start executing. They're generous with knowledge. Real winners aren't threatened by helping others. They share what they know. They make introductions. They provide value. When you're around generous winners, you learn faster and connect better. They have high standards. They don't accept mediocrity from themselves or others. They expect excellence. When you're around people with high standards, your standards rise. What used to be acceptable becomes unacceptable. These are the people you need in your life. Not because they'll do the work for you, but because their environment will reprogram you. Their normal will become your normal. Their standards will become your standards. Their thinking will become your thinking. The strategic network. Networking isn't about collecting business cards. It's about strategic relationship building with specific people who can help you achieve specific goals. Most people network randomly. They meet whoever shows up at events. They connect with whoever reaches out. They maintain relationships with whoever is convenient. This is amateur hour. Professionals network strategically. They identify exactly who they need to know to achieve their goals. Then they figure out how to get access to those people. Then they provide value to establish real relationships. Then they maintain those relationships deliberately. Here's how to network like a billionaire. Step 1. Identify who you need to know. Who has already achieved what you want to achieve? Who has skills you need? Who has access to opportunities you want? Who has capital you need? Be specific. Make a list. Step 2. Research them. What do they care about? What problems are they trying to solve? What do they value? What content do they create? What events do they attend? Learn everything about them. Step 3. Provide value first. Don't ask for favors. Don't pitch them. Provide value. Share insights relevant to their work. Make useful introductions. Solve problems they have. Create content that helps them. Lead with giving, not taking. Step 4. Get access. Now that you've provided value, reach out. Reference the value you've provided. Be specific about what you're looking for. Make it easy for them to say yes. Respect their time. Step 5. Build the relationship. One meeting doesn't create a relationship. Stay in touch. Continue providing value. Update them on your progress. Ask for advice when appropriate. Build over time. This is how billionaires build networks. Strategically. Deliberately. Value first. Most people skip all these steps and wonder why networking doesn't work. It's because they're not actually networking. They're just meeting people randomly. How to access these people? Now you're thinking. I don't know any rich people. I don't have access to winners. How am I supposed to surround myself with them? Fair question. Here's the answer. You create access. First, start consuming their content. Books, podcasts, videos, interviews. You might not be able to hang out with billionaires in person, but you can spend hours listening to them explain their thinking. This is free. This is accessible right now. And it's incredibly powerful. What you consume shapes how you think. Second, go where they go. Rich people congregate in specific places. Business conferences, networking events, masterminds, high-end gyms, certain restaurants, charity events. Find out where winners in your industry or area gather and show up. Yes, it might be expensive. Yes, it might be uncomfortable. Do it anyway. The connections you make in one event can change your entire trajectory. Third, provide value first. You can't access high-level people by asking for favors. They don't need anything from you, but you can provide value. Help them with something. Solve a problem. Make an introduction. Create content that benefits them. Contribute to their mission. When you lead with value, doors open. Fourth, hire them. Want access to someone successful? Pay them for consulting, for coaching, for advice. This is the fastest way to get high-quality time with someone ahead of you. Yes, it's expensive, but one insight from someone operating at a higher level can be worth thousands or millions. Fifth, create your own winner circle. Find people at your level who are serious about growth, who are taking action, who are committed to leveling up. Create a mastermind group. Meet regularly. Share strategies. Hold each other accountable. You don't need to wait for permission to surround yourself with serious people. Build your own circle. The difficult conversation. At some point, you're going to have uncomfortable conversations with friends who hold you back, with family members who don't support your ambitions, with people who want you to stay the same because your growth threatens their comfort. These conversations are hard, but they're necessary. You need to communicate. I love you, but I'm changing. I'm pursuing goals that are important to me. I need you to support me, or at least not undermine me. I can't let your fears limit my ambitions. Some people will understand. Some won't. Some relationships will adapt. Some won't survive. That's painful, but it's the cost of growth. You can't stay loyal to your old life and build a new one at the same time. Something has to give. Choose your potential over your comfort. Choose your future over your past. Choose growth over stagnation. Even when it's hard. Even when it hurts. Even when people don't understand. Taking action now. Here's your assignment. Audit your relationships. Write down the 10 people you spend the most time with. For each person, honestly assess. Is this person raising my standards or lowering them? Are they supporting my growth or preventing it? Are they pushing me forward or pulling me back? Be brutally honest. This isn't about whether you like them. It's about whether they're helping or hurting your progress toward your goals. Now identify. Who needs more of your time? Who needs less? Who do you need to add to your life? Who do you need to remove or reduce? Make a plan. Start spending more time with people who elevate you. Start reducing time with people who limit you. Start seeking out winners in your field. Start consuming content from people operating at the level you want to reach. Your environment determines your destination. If you want different results, you need a different environment. If you want to think like a billionaire, you need to be around people who think like billionaires. Surround yourself with winners. Or stay broke. The choice is yours. Chapter 4. Move fast and break things. Speed is a competitive advantage. In business, in wealth building, in life. And most people don't move nearly fast enough. They overthink. They overplan. They wait for perfect conditions. They analyze until the opportunity passes, and then they wonder why they never get ahead. Meanwhile, billionaires move fast, ridiculously fast. They make decisions in minutes that would take most people weeks. They launch products that aren't perfect. They enter markets before they fully understand them. They take action with incomplete information. And they win because speed beats perfection. Every single time. The paralysis of perfectionism. Here's your problem. You're waiting for perfect. Perfect plan. Perfect conditions. Perfect preparation. Perfect knowledge. Perfect confidence. And perfect never comes. So you never move. You want to start a business? You spend months researching, reading books, taking courses, building the perfect business plan, perfecting your logo, perfecting your website. And by the time you're ready to launch, the market has moved. Your competitors have launched. The opportunity is past. You were so busy preparing that you never actually started. You want to invest? You wait for the perfect entry point, the perfect stock, the perfect market conditions. And while you wait, time passes. Markets go up. You miss gains. By the time everything feels perfect, you've missed years of compound growth. You want to make a career change? You wait until you're fully qualified, until you have every skill, until you're 100% ready. And while you wait, opportunities go to people who were less qualified, but moved faster. Perfection is a myth. It doesn't exist. And waiting for it is just fear in disguise. Fear of failure. Fear of judgment. Fear of not being good enough. So you hide behind preparation, behind planning, behind perfectionism. But you're not being careful. You're being cowardly. Billionaires don't wait for perfect. They move at 70% ready. They launch before they're fully prepared. They figure it out as they go. They know that done is better than perfect. Because done generates feedback. Done generates results. Done generates learning. Perfect generates nothing except wasted time. The velocity advantage. Speed isn't just about moving fast. It's about creating compounding advantages that slow movers can't match. When you move fast, you learn fast. You make mistakes quickly and correct them quickly. You iterate rapidly. Each iteration makes you smarter. Each cycle makes you more capable. By the time slow movers launch their perfect solution, you're already on version 5. You know what works because you've tested it. They're guessing. When you move fast, you build momentum. Momentum attracts resources. People want to join things that are moving. Capital flows to businesses that are executing. Opportunities appear for people who are already in motion. Momentum creates a self-reinforcing cycle. But you can't build momentum while standing still. When you move fast, you develop competitive immunity. Speed creates a moat. By the time competitors copy what you're doing, you've already moved on to the next thing. They're always playing catch-up, always reacting, never leading. Speed makes you hard to compete with because you're always ahead of the competitive response curve. When you move fast, you fail fast. This sounds bad, but it's not. Fast failure means you find out what doesn't work quickly and cheaply. You don't waste years and fortunes on bad ideas. You test, fail, learn, pivot, all while slow movers are still planning. Your failures make you smarter. Their planning makes them poorer. The cost of slow. Every day you delay is a day you're not learning, not getting feedback, not making progress, not building momentum. You think you're being smart by waiting, but you're actually falling behind. While you're planning, someone else is executing. While you're preparing, someone else is iterating. While you're perfecting, someone else is learning from real-world feedback. And by the time you're ready, there are already 3 versions ahead of you. Speed creates opportunities. When you move fast, you get early mover advantage. You learn faster. You iterate faster. You capture market share before competition intensifies. You build momentum that carries you forward. You compound your efforts. Slow eliminates opportunities. When you move slow, you let others get ahead. You give competition time to establish. You miss windows that don't stay open. You lose momentum before you even start. You waste your most valuable asset, time, on overthinking. Think about every successful tech company. They didn't wait for perfect. Facebook launched as a basic directory for Harvard students. Amazon started just selling books. Google's first interface was embarrassingly simple. They launched minimum viable products. They got them in front of users. They learned. They iterated. They improved. Fast. If they had waited for perfect, they'd have been destroyed by competitors who moved faster. Speed was their advantage. Iteration was their strategy. Perfectionism would have killed them. The decision velocity framework. Billionaires don't just move fast randomly. They have frameworks for making fast decisions without being reckless. Here's the framework. Type 1 decisions. Irreversible or nearly irreversible. These require careful analysis. Examples: selling your company, choosing a business partner, major strategic pivots. Take time on these. Be thorough. These are rare. Type 2 decisions, reversible. These should be made fast. Examples: hiring someone, launching a product, trying a marketing channel, making an investment. Move quickly. If it doesn't work, reverse it. These are most decisions. Most people treat type 2 decisions like type 1 decisions. They agonize over every choice. They analyze every option. They delay every decision. This is why they move slow. Billionaires identify which type of decision they're facing. Type 1, slow down. Type 2, speed up. They make reversible decisions in hours or days, not weeks or months. And because most decisions are reversible, they move fast most of the time. Learn to distinguish decision types. Then apply appropriate velocity. This single framework will 10x your speed. Minimum viable everything. Here's the billionaire approach. Minimum viable everything. Not minimum effort, but minimum viable. What's the smallest version of this that could work? What's the fastest way to test this? What's the quickest path to feedback? You want to start a service business. Don't spend 6 months building a perfect website and brand. Make a simple landing page. Reach out to potential customers directly. Get your first client. Deliver results. Learn. Improve. Then build the website. You want to create a product? Don't spend a year perfecting it. Build the simplest version that solves the core problem. Get it in front of users. See what they actually need versus what you think they need. Iterate based on real feedback. You want to invest in real estate. Don't wait until you understand everything about real estate. Buy one property. Small one. Learn by doing. Make mistakes on a small scale. Then scale up with knowledge from real experience. Minimum viable means, what's the fastest way to get real-world feedback? Because feedback is what matters. Not your assumptions. Not your plan. Not your preparation. Feedback from reality. And you can't get that until you launch. Most people build for months before launching anything. Billionaires launch in days or weeks, then build based on what they learn. One approach wastes time preparing for imaginary problems. The other solves real problems as they appear. Guess which one wins? The 48-hour launch rule. Here's a forcing function that will change your life. The 48-hour launch rule. When you have an idea worth testing, you have 48 hours to launch a minimum viable version. Not perfect. Viable. Testable. Real. This sounds insane. How can you launch anything in 48 hours? You can't launch a perfect anything, but you can launch a minimum viable version of almost anything. Want to test a business idea? In 48 hours, you can create a landing page, Write copy that explains the value proposition, set up payment processing, and drive traffic to see if people want it. You can validate the idea before building anything. Want to start a newsletter? In 48 hours, you can set up an email platform, write your first issue, create a sign-up page, and share it with your network. You can start building an audience immediately. Want to test a new service? In 48 hours, you can create a simple offer, reach out to potential clients directly, get your first customer, and deliver the service manually. You can generate revenue before building any systems. The 48-hour rule forces action. It eliminates overthinking. It prevents analysis paralysis. It makes you focus on what actually matters versus what's nice to have. It trains you to move fast. Try it. Pick an idea you've been sitting on. Launch a minimum viable version in 48 hours. You'll be shocked at what's possible when you prioritize speed over perfection. Bias toward action. Billionaires have a default setting: action. When they see an opportunity, their first instinct is, how do I do this? Not, should I do this? They assume action unless there's a clear reason not to. Most people have the opposite default. They assume an action unless there's overwhelming reason to act. This bias toward action compounds. Every action generates information. Information enables better actions. Better actions generate better results. Results build confidence. Confidence enables bigger actions. It's a compounding loop. But you have to start the loop with action. If you default to inaction, the loop never begins. You stay stuck in analysis. Analysis doesn't compound. It just consumes time. Here's how to build bias toward action. Give yourself decision deadlines. When you identify an opportunity, you have 48 hours to either act on it or consciously decide not to. No indefinite, I'll think about it. Either move or dismiss, but no limbo. This forces decision-making. It eliminates the comfortable middle ground of eternal consideration. It trains you to gather enough information to decide, then decide. Not gather information forever while pretending you're making progress. The iteration mindset. Moving fast isn't about getting it right the first time. It's about getting feedback fast so you can iterate toward right. Version 1.0 will be wrong. That's okay. That's expected. The point isn't to launch perfection. The point is to launch something that generates feedback. Then you build version 1.1 based on feedback. Then 1.2. Then 2.0. Each iteration makes you smarter. Each version gets closer to product market fit. Each cycle reduces uncertainty. This is how great products are built. Not through perfect planning, through rapid iteration. Billionaires embrace this. They know version 1.0 will be embarrassing. They launch anyway, because they'd rather have an embarrassing product generating feedback than a perfect product that never launches. You need to develop this mindset. Accept that your first attempt will be wrong. Launch it anyway. Learn from what's wrong. Fix it. Launch again. Iterate. Improve. Repeat. Speed of iteration beats quality of first attempt. Always. Because iteration compounds. First attempt quality doesn't. Breaking things is part of the process. Move fast and break things doesn't mean be reckless. It means prioritize speed and iteration over perfection. Accept that some things will break. Some experiments will fail. Some launches will flop. That's not failure. That's feedback. Every billionaire has a graveyard of failed projects. Products that didn't work. Businesses that folded. Investments that lost money. Ideas that flopped. They broke things. A lot of things. But they learned from each break. And those lessons informed the successes that made them billions. Jeff Bezos has launched dozens of products that failed. Fire phone. Amazon auctions. Endless other projects nobody remembers. but he moved fast enough to test many ideas. Most broke, but the ones that worked, AWS, Prime, Marketplace, generated massive value that more than compensated for the failures. Elon Musk has had rockets explode. Companies nearly go bankrupt. Products launch with problems. But he moves faster than anyone else in his industries. And speed of iteration is why he wins. He learns faster than competition because he's willing to break things and learn from what broke. You're afraid of breaking things, so you move slow. So you test minimally. So you launch nothing until it's perfect. So you learn nothing. So you stay where you are. Break things. Get comfortable with things breaking. Because the fastest path to success goes through multiple failures. And if you're not willing to fail fast, you'll fail slow. And failing slow is worse because you waste time getting to the same learning. The window of opportunity. Opportunities have windows. They open. They stay open for a limited time. Then they close. If you're not fast enough, you miss them. Forever. Crypto in 2013. Real estate in 2010. Tech startups in the 1990s. These were obvious opportunities at the time to people paying attention. But most people moved too slow. They waited. They wanted to understand more. They wanted to be sure. And by the time they were ready, the window was closing. The easy gains were gone. The people who got rich weren't necessarily smarter. They were faster. They saw the opportunity. They moved on incomplete information. They accepted risk. They got in early. They learned by doing. And they captured value while the window was open. Right now, there are open windows. Opportunities that are obvious to people paying attention. But most people won't act. They'll wait. They'll want certainty. And in 5 years, they'll say, I saw that coming, but I didn't act. The window will have closed. Speed is how you catch opportunities. Hesitation is how you miss them. Move fast or watch others win. Taking action now. Here's what you're doing today. Identify one thing you've been overthinking. One opportunity you've been analyzing. One project you've been preparing for. One idea you've been perfecting. Now, launch a minimum viable version of it. Today. Not perfect. Not complete. Just viable. Just enough to get real-world feedback. Just enough to learn something real instead of something theoretical. Maybe it's reaching out to a potential client before your website is perfect. Maybe it's making an offer on a property before you're an expert in real estate. Maybe it's launching a product that solves the core problem even if it doesn't have all the features. Maybe it's starting the business before you have everything figured out. Do it today. Imperfectly. Incompletely. Uncomfortably. Prove to yourself that you can move fast. That you can act on incomplete information. That you can handle things breaking. That speed is more valuable than perfection. Move fast and break things. It's not reckless. It's how you win. Speed beats perfection. Action beats analysis. Done beats perfect. Stop overthinking. Start moving. The window is open, but it won't stay open forever. Chapter 5. Money is a game you're losing. Money is a game. With rules. With strategies. With winners and losers. And you're losing because you don't even know you're playing a game. You think money is about hard work and being a good person and hoping things work out. That's not how the game works. That's not even close. Rich people understand it's a game. They learn the rules. They study the strategies. They play to win. Poor people think the game is rigged or unfair or immoral. So they don't learn the rules. They don't develop strategies. They just complain about players who are winning. The game is neutral. It rewards specific behaviors and punishes others. It doesn't care about your intentions or your effort or your morality. It cares about whether you understand the rules and play accordingly. And right now you don't. The rules you don't know. Let's start with the actual rules of the money game. not the bullshit you were taught in school. The real rules that rich people operate by. Rule 1. Money flows to value. You don't make money by working hard. You make money by creating value. The more value you create, the more money flows to you. If you're not making money, you're not creating enough value, or you're creating value that people don't want to pay for. Rule 2. Money flows toward money. Capital compounds. The more you have, the easier it is to make more. This seems unfair, but it's physics. If you have $1 million generating 10% returns, you make $100,000 without working. Someone with zero can't do that. Money as a tool generates more money. Rule 3. Money flows to those who understand money. Financial literacy is a multiplier. Two people can make the same income. One understands investing, tax strategy, leverage, and compounding. The other doesn't. First person builds wealth. Second stays broke. Knowledge determines outcomes more than income. Rule 4. Money flows to those who take calculated risks. Every fortune was built on risk. Real estate, stocks, business, all risk. No risk, no reward. But it's calculated risk, understanding odds, managing downside, maximizing upside. Not reckless gambling. Calculated bets. Rule 5. Money flows to those who move fast. Opportunities don't wait. Windows close. First movers capture value. Hesitators watch from the sidelines. Speed is a competitive advantage in the money game. Rule 6. Money flows away from those who don't respect it. Spend mindlessly, money disappears. Don't invest it, inflation eats it. Don't protect it, taxes take it. Don't leverage it, opportunity cost kills it. Money requires active management or it vanishes. These are the rules. Not what you wish they were. What they actually are. Rich people play by these rules and win. Poor people ignore these rules and lose. The game doesn't care about fairness. It cares about results. The scorecard principle. Here's something most people miss. Money is a scorecard. It's how the game measures success. But it's not the goal itself. It's the indicator that you're playing well. Think about sports. Points aren't the goal. Playing well is the goal. Points are just how you measure whether you're playing well. You can't score points without playing. But you can play without scoring if you're playing wrong. Same with money. Money isn't the goal. Creating value is the goal. Money is just how you measure whether you're creating value effectively. You can't make money without creating value. But you can create value without making money if you're capturing value incorrectly. Most people obsess over the scorecard instead of the game. They focus on money directly instead of focusing on creating value. This is backwards. Focus on playing the game well, and the score takes care of itself. Billionaires focus on value creation. They ask, how do I solve bigger problems? How do I serve more people? How do I create something people desperately need? They play the game. Money is just how they keep score. You focus on money directly. You ask, how do I make money? How do I get money? How do I save money? You're staring at the scorecard. You're not playing the game. That's why you're losing. Your relationship with money is broken. Most people have a completely dysfunctional relationship with money. They see it as scarce, as something to be hoarded, as something to feel guilty about wanting, as something that corrupts. This broken relationship guarantees they'll never have much of it. Let's diagnose your money relationship. Scarcity mindset. You believe there's not enough money. That if someone else gets money, there's less for you. That money is finite. This is false. Money is created constantly. Wealth is created through value creation. There's infinite potential for wealth. But scarcity mindset makes you defensive, fearful, and unable to take the risks necessary to build wealth. Guilt about wanting money. You feel bad about wanting to be rich. You think it's greedy or shallow or selfish. This is programming from broke people trying to make you comfortable being broke like them. There's nothing wrong with wanting money. Money is freedom. Money is options. Money is power to impact the world. Wanting money is natural and healthy. Fear of losing it. You're so afraid of losing money that you won't invest it or risk it or use it to create more. So it sits, doing nothing, getting eaten by inflation, generating zero returns. Your fear of loss guarantees loss to opportunity cost, confusion of net worth and self-worth. You tie your identity to your bank account. When you have money, you feel valuable. When you don't, you feel worthless. This is toxic. Your worth is independent of your wealth. Money is a tool. It's not you. Spending to feel good. You use money to manage emotions. Stressed by something. Sad. Shopping therapy. Bored. Spend money on entertainment. This is using money as a drug. It creates an addiction cycle where you work to make money, to spend to feel better about having to work. It's a trap. All of these are game-losing mindsets. As long as you have these relationships with money, you'll lose the game. Because the game requires seeing money clearly. As a tool. As a resource. As something to be leveraged. Not feared. Not hoarded. Not worshipped. Leveraged. The psychological money traps. Beyond your general relationship with money, there are specific psychological traps that keep you broke. Recognizing them is the first step to escaping them. The income illusion. You think high income equals wealth. It doesn't. Plenty of people make $500,000 per year and have negative net worth. They spend it all. High income without wealth-building behavior creates zero wealth. Net worth is what matters, not income. The security trap. You prioritize security over growth. You want guaranteed outcomes, safe investments, predictable income. But security and wealth are inversely correlated. The safest choices generate the lowest returns. The highest returns require accepting uncertainty. By prioritizing security, you guarantee modest outcomes. The comparison trap. You compare yourself to people slightly above you and feel poor. This makes you spend money to signal success, to keep up appearances, to not feel behind. This spending prevents actual wealth building. You're playing a status game instead of a wealth game. The lifestyle inflation trap. Every time your income increases, your spending increases proportionally. You upgrade your car, your house, your lifestyle. You make more but save the same percentage. You never build wealth because you're always spending what you make. This is the hamster wheel that keeps high earners broke. The instant gratification trap. You choose immediate pleasure over delayed wealth. You buy things now instead of investing for later. You consume instead of building. Each choice seems small, but compounded over years. These choices determine whether you're rich or broke. These traps are everywhere. They're normalized. They're socially acceptable. They're comfortable. And they guarantee you stay broke. Rich people recognize these traps and avoid them. Deliberately. Consistently. That's why they're rich. How rich people think about money. Rich people have a completely different relationship with money. It's not emotional. It's strategic. Money is a tool to create more money. That's it. Nothing more complex than that. They don't hoard it. They invest it. They use it to generate returns. They leverage it to create more value. Money sitting still is money dying. Money in motion is money multiplying. They don't fear losing it. They accept that some investments will fail. Some bets won't pay off. That's the game. You take multiple bets. Some lose. But the winners more than compensate for the losers. Fear of loss keeps you from playing. Acceptance of loss lets you play big. They don't feel guilty about having it. They know money is a scorecard. It measures value created. If they have a lot of money, it means they created a lot of value. That's good. That's the goal. No guilt, just results. They don't tie identity to it. Their worth is independent of their net worth. Money can fluctuate. Their self-concept doesn't. This allows them to take risks without existential fear. Lose money? Make it back. No big deal. It's just a game. They spend it strategically. Every dollar is either an investment or an expense. Investments generate returns. Expenses are costs. They maximize investments, minimize expenses. They're not cheap. They'll spend lavishly on things that matter. But they're strategic. Every dollar has a purpose. This is the mindset that wins the money game. Detached, strategic, focused on returns, comfortable with risk, unattached to specific outcomes, playing long-term. The strategies you're not using. Knowing the rules isn't enough. You need strategies. Here are the strategies rich people use that broke people don't. Leverage. Rich people use other people's money, other people's time, and other people's skills to multiply their results. They take out loans to buy assets that appreciate and generate cash flow. They hire people to do work that generates value. They use systems and technology to multiply output. Broke people use only their own resources. Rich people multiply everything. Compounding. Rich people start investing early and let time do the work. They understand that compounding is the most powerful force in wealth building. They don't need huge returns, just consistent returns over time. Broke people wait. They think they'll invest later when they have more money. Later never comes, and they lose the most valuable component of compounding: time. Multiple income streams. Rich people don't rely on one source of income. They have businesses, investments, real estate, royalties, multiple streams. If one slows down, others continue. Broke people have one income stream, their job. If they lose it, they're broke. Single point of failure. Tax optimization. Rich people structure their income and expenses to minimize taxes legally. They use entities. They invest in tax-advantaged accounts. They take advantage of deductions. They pay accountants to save them multiples of what the accountant costs. Broke people pay maximum taxes because they don't understand tax strategy. Value creation focus. Rich people obsess over creating value. How can I solve bigger problems? How can I serve more people? How can I create something people desperately want? Value creation is the source of money. Broke people obsess over money directly. They focus on how to make money, not how to create value. This backwards approach keeps them broke. Asset accumulation. Rich people buy assets, things that appreciate or generate cash flow. Real estate, stocks, businesses, intellectual property. Broke people buy liabilities, things that depreciate and cost money. Cars, clothes, electronics, experiences. One path builds wealth, the other destroys it. These aren't secrets. These are just strategies, available to anyone. But most people don't use them because they don't see money as a game with learnable strategies. They see it as mysterious or unfair or based on luck. So they never learn to play. The capital allocation framework. One of the most important skills billionaires have is capital allocation. They're exceptional at deciding where to deploy capital for maximum return. Most people are terrible at this. Here's the framework. Hierarchy of capital deployment. 1. Invest in yourself, education, skills, health, highest ROI. 2. Invest in your business/career, tools, people, systems, high ROI. 3. Invest in assets, real estate, stocks, businesses, medium to high ROI. 4. Hold cash, emergency fund, opportunity fund. 0 real ROI, but strategic value. 5. Consume experiences, lifestyle, status. Negative ROI, but quality of life value. Most people operate backwards. They prioritize consumption, then maybe save a bit. Rarely invest in themselves. Almost never invest in assets or business. Billionaires operate in order. First, they invest heavily in themselves. They spend lavishly on learning, coaching, health. They know this compounds. Next, they invest in building their business or career. They buy tools and hire people and build systems. They know this scales their income. Then they invest in assets. They buy cash-flowing investments. They diversify. They build passive income. Only after all of that do they consume. And when they do consume, they do it intentionally, not mindlessly, not emotionally, strategically. Your capital allocation probably looks nothing like this. And that's why you're not rich. Start allocating like a billionaire. Prioritize investment over consumption. Prioritize building over spending. Prioritize future returns over present pleasure. Taking action now. Time to get in the game properly. Here's your move. First, fix your money relationship. Write down every limiting belief you have about money. Money is scarce. Rich people are greedy. I'm not good with money. I'll never be wealthy. Write them all down, then cross them out. Replace each one with an empowering belief. Money is abundant. Rich people create value. I can learn about money. I'm building wealth. Second, learn the rules. Read books about money. Listen to podcasts about investing. Study how rich people think about and manage money. Spend 1 hour per day for the next 30 days learning about wealth building. This is an investment that will pay returns for life. Third, start playing. Pick one strategy from above and implement it this month. Maybe you start investing, even if it's just $100. Maybe you create a second income stream. Maybe you optimize your taxes. Maybe you focus on creating more value. Just pick one and start. Fourth, track your score. Money is a game. Games have scores. Start tracking your net worth monthly. Not to stress about it, to gamify it, to see progress, to make it real. You can't win a game if you don't keep score. Money is a game. You're currently losing because you don't know the rules. You're not using strategies, and you're not even keeping score. But you can change that. Today, learn the game. Play the game. Win the game. Stop thinking about money emotionally. Start thinking about money strategically. That's the shift that changes everything. Chapter 6. Operate like a CEO, not an employee. Here's a hard truth. Employee mindset keeps you broke. Even if you're self-employed. Even if you own a business. If you think like an employee, you will get employee results. Limited income. Limited growth. Limited freedom. CEO mindset is what builds wealth. And CEO mindset isn't about having a title or running a company. It's about how you think, how you make decisions, how you allocate resources, how you measure success. It's an operating system, and you need to upgrade yours. The employee operating system. Let's identify employee thinking so you can recognize it and eliminate it. Employees trade time for money. They think in terms of hourly rates or salaries. They work hours. They get paid for those hours. Their income is directly tied to their time. This caps their earning potential at the number of hours they can work. Employees follow instructions. Someone tells them what to do. They do it. They don't question the strategy. They don't think about the bigger picture. They execute tasks. This limits their growth because they never develop strategic thinking. Employees avoid risk. They want security, steady paycheck, benefits, predictability. They avoid anything uncertain. This keeps them trapped because wealth building requires risk. Without risk tolerance, no wealth. Employees wait for permission. They need approval to take action. They need someone to tell them it's okay. They don't make moves without validation. This makes them dependent. Dependent people don't build wealth. Employees think short-term. Next paycheck, next promotion, next raise. They optimize for immediate compensation. They don't build long-term assets. This prevents wealth accumulation because wealth is long-term assets compounding. Employees blame circumstances. When things go wrong, it's the economy, the boss, the system, customers, never them. This victim mindset prevents learning and growth. No responsibility means no power to change outcomes. If any of this sounds like you have employee operating system. Even if you work for yourself, the mindset is what matters. And employee mindset cannot build significant wealth. It's not designed to. The authority gradient. There's a concept from aviation called the authority gradient. It's the balance of decision-making power between captain and co-pilot. When the gradient is too steep, co-pilots don't speak up even when they see problems. Planes crash. Most people operate with a steep authority gradient in their own lives. They defer to external authorities, to bosses, to systems, to the way things are done. They don't trust their own judgment. They don't act without permission. They wait for someone above them in the gradient to make decisions. This is fine if you want to be an employee forever, but it's fatal if you want to build wealth, because wealth building requires acting on your own authority, making decisions without permission, trusting your judgment even when others disagree, operating with a flat authority gradient where you're the ultimate authority in your life. Billionaires operate with flat authority gradients. They trust their judgment. They make decisions independently. They act without waiting for validation. They're comfortable being wrong sometimes because they're comfortable being the authority. They'd rather be wrong on their own judgment than right because they waited for someone else's permission. You need to flatten your authority gradient. Stop waiting for permission. Stop deferring to external authorities. Start trusting your own judgment. Start making decisions independently. Start acting on your own authority. This feels uncomfortable at first. You've been trained to defer. But wealth requires authority. Your authority. Over your life. Over your decisions. Over your outcomes. The CEO operating system. Now let's look at CEO thinking. This is the operating system that builds wealth. CEOs create value and capture a portion of it. They don't trade time for money. They build systems that generate value. Then they take a percentage of that value. Their income isn't limited by their hours. It's limited by how much value their systems generate. This is scalable. This is how wealth is built. CEOs set the strategy. They don't wait for instructions. They decide what needs to be done. They create the plan. They allocate resources. They make the calls. This develops strategic thinking. And strategic thinking is what separates wealth builders from wage earners. CEOs embrace calculated risk. They understand no risk, no reward. They don't seek security. They seek opportunity. They accept that some risks won't pay off, but they know the winners will more than compensate. This risk tolerance is necessary for wealth building. CEOs take action without permission. They don't wait for someone to tell them it's okay. They evaluate opportunities. They make decisions. They act. This independence is essential. Wealth isn't built by asking for permission. It's built by taking calculated action. CEOs think long-term. They're building assets that will appreciate over years or decades. They sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term wealth. They invest now for returns later. This delayed gratification is what creates significant wealth. CEOs take full responsibility. When things go well, it's because of their decisions. When things go badly, it's also because of their decisions. They own everything. This responsibility gives them power. Power to learn. Power to adjust. Power to succeed. This is the operating system that builds wealth. Not because of the title, because of the thinking. You can be a CEO of a company of one and think like a CEO. Or you can run a business and think like an employee. The title doesn't matter. The mindset does. The ownership principle. CEOs operate from ownership. Not just legal ownership of companies. Psychological ownership of outcomes. When you have ownership mentality, every outcome is yours. Every success, every failure, every result, you own it. This sounds heavy. It is. But it's also liberating. Without ownership, you're powerless. Things happen to you. You're a victim of circumstances. You wait for others to fix problems. You have excuses for why things aren't working. You're reactive. With ownership, you're powerful. You make things happen. You create circumstances. You fix your own problems. You have no excuses, only results. You're proactive. Employees don't have ownership mentality. Their job is to show up, do their tasks, collect their paycheck. If things go wrong, it's someone else's problem. They're not responsible for outcomes, just for completing assigned tasks. CEOs have total ownership mentality. Their company's results are their results. Their team's performance is their responsibility. Their market's response is feedback on their decisions. They own everything, and this ownership makes them powerful. You need ownership mentality even if you're employed. You're the CEO of your career. Your financial results are your responsibility. Your skill development is your responsibility. Your opportunities are your responsibility. Own all of it, because ownership is power. The shift in decision-making. The clearest difference between employee and CEO mindset shows up in decision-making. Same decision, completely different thought process. Opportunity appears. Employee thinks, can I do this? Do I have time? What if it doesn't work? What will people think? Should I ask someone if this is a good idea? CEO thinks, what's the potential ROI? What's the risk? What's the downside? How do I mitigate it? What resources do I need? Let's run the numbers and decide. Financial decision. Employee thinks, can I afford this? Focus on cost. CEO thinks, what's the return on this investment? Focus on value. Problem appears. Employee thinks, whose fault is this? Who's going to fix this? Why did this happen to me? CEO thinks, what's the solution? What resources do I need? How do I prevent this in the future? What did I do wrong that I can fix? Time allocation. Employee thinks, what do I need to do today? Focus on tasks. CEO thinks, what's the highest ROI use of my time today? Focus on impact. Setback occurs. Employee thinks, this isn't fair. Why does this always happen to me? Maybe I should quit. CEO thinks, what did I learn? How do I adjust? What's the next move? See the pattern? Employee thinking is reactive, permission-seeking, focused on security, looking externally for answers. CEO thinking is proactive, autonomous, focused on opportunity, looking internally for solutions. The strategic planning discipline. CEOs don't just react to daily demands. They plan strategically. They set direction. They allocate resources deliberately. They measure progress against goals. They adjust based on results. Most people never do strategic planning for their own lives. They react. They respond to what's urgent. They put out fires. They handle what's in front of them. They're tactical, never strategic. This is why they never get ahead. Because without strategy, you're just busy. Busy doesn't create wealth. Strategic execution creates wealth. Here's how to think like a CEO about your life. Quarterly planning. Every 90 days, block a full day. Review the last quarter. What worked? What didn't? What did you learn? Then plan the next quarter. What are your top 3 goals? What metrics matter? What resources do you need? What's your strategy for achieving these goals? Monthly review. Every month, review progress against quarterly goals. Are you on track? What needs to adjust? What's blocking you? What opportunities appeared? What threats emerged? Make tactical adjustments while keeping strategic direction. Weekly execution. Every week, identify your top 3 priorities that move you toward monthly targets. Everything else is secondary. Protect time for these priorities. Everything else fits around them. Daily focus. Every day, identify the single highest impact task. Do it first. Before email. Before meetings. Before anything else. One high-impact task per day, done consistently, transforms results. This is CEO-level discipline. Most people don't do any of this. They wake up and react. They check email and respond. They attend meetings and participate. They're busy all day, but accomplish nothing strategic. That's employee thinking. Think like a billionaire. Be the CEO of your life. Do strategic planning. Allocate resources, time, money, energy to high ROI activities, measure KPIs, and take full ownership. No excuses. Delegate ruthlessly. Calculate your hourly rate. Anything below it, delegate, automate, or eliminate. The cost of not delegating is higher. You can't scale doing everything yourself. Employee versus CEO mindset. Employees earn linear income, have one stream, save slowly. CEOs build scalable income, multiple streams, invest and compound wealth rapidly. The billionaire decision. Think like a billionaire today. Value your time at thousands per hour. Think in millions. Surround yourself with winners. Move fast, launch before ready. See money as a game. Take full responsibility. Action over knowledge. Most people learn and do nothing. Cross the gap. Make one concrete decision now. Write it down. Living like a billionaire is about thinking like one first. Choose. Old thinking equals old results, or new thinking equals actual wealth. Time is your only real asset. Stop thinking small. Move fast. Play to win.